Today we will try to understand the concept of RDP Shortpath. It is the second video in Azure AVD networking. In the previous one, we understood reverse connect. So, as per this diagram, as you can see, let's suppose this is the client who is trying to access the AVD session host to do his or her work. So the request will go like this. It will go to the gateway, and gateway will ask the broker to find the session host for this request, and there is a persistent communication channel between broker and the session host, which establish once the session host turn up through remote desktop agent loader service. Let me write this down here. Remote desktop agent loader service, and this channel is a persistent communication channel, right? So then this broker will let the session host, one of the session host, which is available to talk to this request. So reverse connects because the request is going from here and here, and gateway is doing the needful. what if what if there is a way by which this session host, let's suppose, can talk to this client directly without involving any other AVD control plane like gateway, broker, and things like that. So if they are talking to each other over directly over UDP based transport, that will be called RDP Shortpath. It's not that simple as of now as it looks, but it is simple though. But let's try to understand it further, because this reverse connect will always happen. Once this is done, all that information is gathered between the client and the session host that they can communicate over UDP. So we'll understand each and every aspect of it. For now, let's describe RDP Shortpath. So RDP Shortpath for Azure Virtual Desktop provides a direct UDP based transport for RDP traffic. All right. This is what the RDP Shortpath is. Unlike traditional method that routes through the AVD gateway, Shortpath establish a direct connection. It's a direct connection between the client's endpoint and the session host. So if it is a direct connection, what will happen? There are certain benefits, of course. Benefits like reducing the round trip latency and improving session reliability. So it will provide very low latency. We'll talk about the advantages in this video as well. But for now, improve session reliability, sorry. Okay, so now we know what is RDP Shortpath. It is a direct UDP based RDP traffic or connection between the client and the session host is the RDP Shortpath. So by default, RDP tries to establish remote session using UDP. Okay, and uses TCP. This is the TCP based, the usual way that we understood the reverse connect one. So TCP based reverse connect transport as a fallback connection. So this will happen if everything, all the prereq met, and this TCP based reverse connection will be the fallback connection mechanism. So UDP based transport offers better connection reliability and more consistent latency. TCP based reverse connect transport provide uh, the best compatibility with various networking configuration and has a high success for establishing RDP connections. So this one, okay, this is there always. Right, but UDP, if you enable UDP so that you can have very low latency and improve session reliability and other benefits, then you need to enable RDP Shortpath listeners on the session host. Since it is on UDP, so there are some challenges where organizations does not allow it over the firewall and other stuff. Then it's a different setup altogether. So let's see that. So there are two ways. What are the two ways? The two ways is this connection which is happening here over the UDP. This connection could be a private connection. What do you mean by private connection? Is like VPN or express route. Okay, it could be a private connection. So a direct UDP connection between client device and session host using a private connection. In that situation, we need to enable something called RDP short path, RDP short path listener on session host and allow inbound port to accept the connection on the session host. That's why I'm writing it here on the session host. Okay, so why I was talking about this, because this RDP can be, there are like four ways we can connect the RDP short path. What are those four ways? The one is through managed network, and another one is through public network. Public network. We do understand managed network is through VPN or through express route. Public network is our internet. All right. So if under managed network, there could be two connection where this RDP is, oh, sorry, this RDP short path listener can be enabled, or we can say RDP settings can be enabled, or it can't be enabled because of compliance or security policies or organizations thing. So in that situation, uh, RDP listener is not there on the session host, but we can utilize stun server. A stun is used to discover available IP address and a dynamic port that can be used for connection. And the port range is configurable. So what would happen? There will be right here on Azure. This is an Azure service. Let's call it stun. So in that situation, stun will give you all the information of the session host regarding all those public IP address or ports which can be configurable, and the session will be established. Okay, this is the second one. Now, if this is happening through internet, let's suppose this is our internet, not green, let's make it blue. Okay, this is the internet, and if connection goes over the internet to the session host right here, and this is again the UDP one, I mean the RDP short path, in it could be private. Usually most of the time it uses during the managed network, but it can also be used in the public network. So in case it is in public network, in that situation, again, this stun server could be utilized. This stun server is we can use to discover available IP address and a dynamic port that can be used for the connection, and the RDP listener and inbound port aren't required there because it is coming from the internet. So these are will not be required anymore, and stun will take care of this configuration. So the communication will happen in this way. There is again on Azure, there will be again stun server and this. That's how they will talk to each other. Now, there is one more thing, an indirect UDP connection between a client device and session host using a public connection where TUR in turn, which is in preview, relays traffic through an intermediate server between a client and session host. An example of when you see the option is if a connection uses symmetric net NAT, a dynamic port is used for connection, the port range is configurable again. Right. If you're wondering, which is in preview, so we are not going there. So stun is something that we should study, we should understand a little further. So what is a stun server? We need to understand. So stun is session traversal utilities for net. Okay. So what it is, stun helps a device behind a net discover its public IP address and port as seen by the external servers, because client cannot go and talk to the session directly because it doesn't know or any public IP and any communication how this is happening. But stun has that information, right? So it assists in establishing a direct peer-to-peer UDP connection by providing the necessary address information. Okay. Now we also mentioned turn, which is in preview. So, but we can still make some note. Turn is servers relay data between client when direct peer-to-peer UDP communication is not possible. So, when direct peer-to-peer is not possible, turn server can play important role. And when it is peer-to-peer not possible, when there is a restrictive NAT or firewall condition, even this is not allowed. In that situation, if this is not allowed, in that situation, turn can be a useful solution, which is in preview, right? So stun is something that we can have this in our discussion as of now. So we understand RDP short path is not going through this, but directly, and it can have a direct communication. It can have communication through stun. Most of the time it is used during the managed network, which is VPN and express route. You need to enable the RDP short path listener on the session host and allow the inbound port. If that is not something which is allowed in your organization, then stun can do the trick. Same goes with the public network. Now let's see few advantages of utilizing RDP short path, because if we're doing something, we should know why we are doing that, right? And how this is impacting our AVD solution. So the very first thing is lower latency, as we talked at the beginning. Why it's a lower latency? We need to understand that piece, because UDP's lack of handshake and error checking mechanism leads to quicker data transmission, which is a crucial for a responsive user experience in Azure AVD. Unlike TCP, which has a lot of handshake and things like that, so it's not happening here. Hence, it's a quicker data transmission. So I could write here faster data transmission, hence lower latency. Another thing is that by establishing a more direct path between the client right here and the session host, UDP reduces the number of hops right here, as you can see, and the potential delays in the network. So it is more direct path, hence low latency. Now, for application requiring real-time interaction such as video playback, gaming, and graphics intensive tasks, the reduced latency and faster data transfer of UDP provide a smoother experience. So, real-time communication becomes smoother. Now, uh, uh, users experience less lag and quicker responses to their actions, which is vital for maintaining productivity and satisfaction in a RDP environment. So that's what's going to happen if there would be a low latency and a faster data transmission. All right, now there is one more thing. Today's networks are generally more stable and capable of handling UDP traffic effectively with reduced packet loss and improved error correction techniques. Right now, it doesn't mean if it is talking directly and it is UDP, so it is not secure. It's not like that, because even though UDP itself does not provide encryption, RDP traffic over UDP is still encrypted using TLS, okay, ensuring data security. Now, RDP Shortpath maintains the same authentication mechanism as traditional RDP over TCP, ensuring that only authorized users can connect. So, authentication is there. As I was saying at the beginning, this step carry on goes on, and this can be developed, and this one can be act as a fallback mechanism. So yeah, that's all about RDP short path. This is a video where we just try to understand the concept, what it is. So now I think it is pretty clear what it is and what are the benefits and how it can help us. It was helpful, and thank you for watching. You guys